And- Yes. See, this is why we keep her around, is she remembers to hit that record button. So, game night, and one of the games, we were talking about problem solving initiatives recently. And if you are not familiar with that term, they are called PSIs, problem solving initiatives. And PSIs have a whole spectrum of challenge. They go from low level to high level PSI. Really, all it means is that it is a relatively small challenge to a hard challenge. And the thing that I'm finding that from traditional outdoor adventure education is that the whole goal is to develop your group so that they can successfully complete a high level PSI. Now, that is being challenged in theory because a lot of us that work in a traditional school setting do not have hours with which to dedicate to a high level problem solving initiative. So how do we create a scenario where we can get the same outcomes and learning from a high level PSI in something that has a much smaller footprint, something that fits into our day, because we know that we're all really busy, and it's hard enough to get in our mandatories and musts, and our days are already longer than they were even 5-10 years ago. So one of the ones that went really well in the Kikori platform, it is called Sticks, Stones, and Bones. I did it yesterday with my staff using Legos, but basically what you do is you give, you have a pair that has 3 identical objects, and they sit back to back. We can play this together right now. If you happen to have a scissors nearby, or something that represents a scissors, perhaps a pen, pencil, or a marker of some sort, and then another random object. I am in a gear room and I happen to have a piece of tape. But I want you to find 3 objects, either physically or just metaphorically. If you are feeding a baby or on a mental health walk, just think about how maybe you would do this. And I am going to, off camera, hey Mason, welcome. So glad you're here. So I am going to get you, so whatever 3 objects that you have, they can match or not. And what I'm going to do is I am going to arrange these objects in front of me. I'm going to verbally tell you how to do it. How this would happen in person, you would have your participants sit back to back. One person would be the talker and the other person would be the listener. So when we did this with Legos, I had sets of identical Legos. And I said, okay, one person is going to build something with their Legos. And then while you're back to back and the other person cannot see it, I want you to describe what you've built, and the other person has to mimic it as closely as possible. So I'm going to tell you that I want you to put your scissors facing up and down. Put the marker on top of the scissors and the tape below the scissors. So now, oh, Steve is here. So now I'm going to show you what I did, and then we'll talk about it. So this is how I am facing. Whoop. Hang on. That's my chat. So my scissors is up and down. The marker is on top of the scissors and the tape is below the scissors. How many of you had something that looked identical to what I did? No. Okay, unmute. Tell me what happened.
Well, I put them right on top of the scissors. Otherwise, I was listening for above the scissors.
Oh, so my on top is different than your on top, and your above is different than my above.
But the tape was the same.
Oh,
and the scissors were right. So 2 out of 3.
All right.
I think I can show you mine. Here we go.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that.
I was thinking actually on top.
A three-dimensional situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in a scenario like this, there's all kinds of clarifying questions. So the modifications that you can do is you can mute the partner who is building and they can't ask clarifying questions, or you can maybe do a second round and say, what would it be like if you ask clarifying questions? And then, are you asking the right questions? Are the scissors open and closed? What is the top of the scissors? What is the bottom? You know, what is the orientation of the cap or the pointy end of the marker, pencil, pen? Is on top, like, is this 3-dimensional? Is this 2-dimensional? But there's all kinds of opportunities to talk about how to clarify what we communicate, and also really debrief where assumptions come from. And I made an assumption that you knew that I meant on top was a 2-dimensional thing. And so there's all kinds of really great discussion that can come out of this. I have a big like Tupperware full of Duplos, and it's hilarious how my big kids love to play with Duplos, and which are like baby toys, and they're loud, but they build things. And so you can make it a higher problem solving initiative by adding more elements. So add more pieces. It's a lower level problem solving initiative if you have less variables. So if you only have 2 things to arrange versus 3, 4, or 5. So that is Sticks, Stones, Bones. Have you guys ever played something similar?
No, but I love that.
All right.
It was one of my favorites. I used to play it with my kids all the time. It's easy to set up. It's really fun. And I just feel like there are a lot of opportunities to like play it again, take what they've learned, and then ask, how can we use this in class? Are there times when this comes up,
Yeah, during a project, maybe when the teacher gives instructions and how the student interprets them. When you are talking to your grown-ups, do they not always understand what it is you're trying to convey? How can we be more clear in our language? How do we know when to ask clarifying questions? And to challenge that, I'm going to level it up. I need you to find a piece of paper.
Okay. Can I just add?
Yeah. Sweet.
I've played this with 18-year-olds, and we created a block with Duplo, and then we put it underwater. So it was in a swimming pool. So they had to dive down, check where the pieces were, come up, and then tell the person on the top to build it. And that had similar results, but it just, it's a new dimension of the game.
Oh my gosh, we play one that we call the Beast, and there's like different stages and runners, and I do it with Mr. Potato Heads, and they have to buy the potato head parts from the store, and so one person can see it and they have to tell it to people, and they have to buy the right parts and then build the potato head the way that it's in this. And so it's just like this telephone of communication. I've never incorporated like taking oxygen out of the system. Putting it at the bottom of a pool.
And what is Duplo?
They're the big Legos.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like
Just big
jumbo
fun.
Lego.
Okay.
Your baby will be getting into them very soon.
It's got like 18 months. But anyway, so I need you to
Gosh, she's
find,
got a minute.
a piece of paper. And now, so this is building off of, or sequencing off of that last challenge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to verbally take you through some discussions. And I want you to, one, fold your piece of paper in half. Okay, and so try to keep your paper out of the video screen. And now that your piece of paper is folded in half, I want you to tear off the top right corner. And now fold your piece of paper in half again. And tear off the top left corner. Fold your piece of paper one last time and tear off the top right corner. So now it is the big reveal. Does your paper look like my paper?
No.
Not at all.
Similar, but not the one in the middle.
All right. So why? Why don't our papers look the same?
My question, when you say fold it again, do you fold it this way or that way? That was my question. Horizontal.
So clarifying, when I say fold it, am I going hot dog or hamburger?
Yes.
And how is the paper oriented when we even start?
Yeah.
Is it letter or landscape?
Yeah.
Are all of our papers the same size to start with? Is somebody working with a piece of square origami paper? You know, or a square Post-it, or is it, you know, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of letter paper? You know, are we even starting from the same spot? What assumptions am I making? So then my challenge would be, okay, couple of different ways that I've run this is I've put people into breakout groups and I say, okay, this is going to be a challenge with you and your partner. I want you and your partner in your breakout rooms or if we're in real life, come up with a strategy so that when we do this again, at least if you and your partner don't have the same paper as me, you have the same paper as each other. So you and your partner come up with a method to make sure that when we do this again, your papers look identical. And then I could do it. I could give this either the same set of instructions or to raise the challenge. If it's a problem solving initiative, to make it a higher level problem solving initiative, I would then give different instructions. So this time, fold on the diagonal, flip your paper upside down, tear it this way. There's a bunch of different ways that you could change the instructions so that then you're highlighting their communication method as opposed to mimicking the exact same set of instructions. So it could be like, draw a star on this corner, maybe draw a circle on this corner, and then see which, if the stars and the circles are in the same corners on the same sides of the paper, and you could analyze that way. And the goal in that scenario is more that the partners agree on, they create a common language. They create a standard that they are both going to abide by, more than that they match with what I say. And then you can do another test. So there's a couple of different rounds or levels of doing it. Sorry, Kendra, can you send Haley the link? She's texting. Thank you. So that one is written up in the app, and it is called Paper Tear. So as a group, if we are all on the same team, what are some things that you would want to, what's an example? How do you want to make sure that if we did this paper tear activity again, that we increase the likelihood that our papers look the same?
Yeah, Bryn, I think as you pointed out at the beginning, I think same size paper is like a good place to start, in orientation of that paper.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say fold, it's always in the same direction as the first fold.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by direction?
So if I have 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I hold it letter, and I say fold it in half. Do we fold from the top to the bottom? From the bottom to the top? Is that a hamburger fold? A hot dog fold? Like, how do you interpret folded in half?
Well, I don't think it matters which way you fold it the top of the first time, if it's a hamburger or a hot dog, but from then on, always do the same. That's what I meant. And it is early in the morning, so it's making me think harder. Thank you.
Yeah. I love it.
That would be a fun experiment if no matter what, we all just did the same. So what you're saying is that whatever I do, I always do the same thing. And whatever you do, you always do the same thing. I feel like that would be an experiment. I don't know what would happen.
Well, let's try
We
it
should
out.
try it. Yeah.
All right, so we all have our full-size sheet of paper. It's all letter, not landscape. All right, and then let's not define it, but let's say fold it in half.
Oh,
Mm.
And tear the top right corner. And if we fold it in half again, and the rule is that we just fold the same way that we did the first time and tear the top left corner. And then fold it in half one last time and tear the top right corner. Mine just looks like this.
I had to use the same piece of paper, so I can't really tell.
You didn't. We didn't start out in the same place.
I'm staying with friends and I don't know where all the paper is, so I've just
Yeah,
had to
no,
use.
it's fine. But this again, all of these activities are just a way, they're a medium to teach or to reinforce other things. And really, this is like, hey, where else in our life do we not always start on the same page? Where else in life are we making assumptions? Where else in life do we have an opportunity to try it and then maybe change it and try it again? But really creating a common language. And I think that that can be really important at the beginning of the year. Hey, this is a set of norms and this is how we talk about it. And this is what this means, making the implicit explicit, instead of me being like, oh, well, these are grown-ups. They know how to fold a piece of paper. Clearly, they're going to do what I did. And then throughout the year, revisiting that and making sure that we're all using that same common language. And checking, like saying, hey, I thought you meant something else when you said that thing.
Yeah.
Getting back on the same page. So, yeah, those were the two problem solving initiatives that I brought to the game night this evening. And then I wanted to see what have you guys been up to? What's been working? What hasn't been working? Do you use problem solving initiatives? Do you call them that? Do you call them something else?
Or could you see yourself using either of these?
Mm-hmm.
And how?
I'm reminded I used some of these a long time ago, but I haven't done them in the school where I'm at right now, but I'm thinking, how come? So this is a great reminder, and I will definitely be doing this term. You know, with our students, often the lesson time is too long for them. So it's really say, when we get to 40 minutes or whatever, we're going to have a fun time, play some games. And it's always good if you've got not just one, but a whole variety of games up your sleeve. And then it's looking forward to finishing the lesson so they can play some games, rather than just say, oh, then you can use your iPad or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they would enjoy these, because some would get them and some wouldn't, but it would be a great way of discussing simple means of communication. Well, what did you mean by that? All those things you raised very much. So I like it. I'll be using that, and I can feedback. You know, as that we don't go back until next week, so we'll definitely be doing that for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah, I could see using these because I am in the outdoor ed setting, and I caught just the tail end of what you're saying, Bryn, at the beginning, where it was like, you know, it's like really heavy on the experiential like side of things, and like I have a lot of time, a lot of days to kind of get across ideas, but there are certain situations where, especially on like first days, where like the sequence of like very light activities, when you're like realizing not everybody in the group has the same like hiking ability as you. I was thinking this could be a cool activity as a segue into a debrief too, about like you know, like we all come with unique like personality traits and abilities, but they're not all the same, and like we can experience the same thing and have totally different outcomes. So I thought that was a cool way to like frame that, based on like the ripping. You know, you all did the hike today. But for some of you, that was incredibly difficult. And for some of you, that was like a walk in the park, and, you know, something along those lines. So,
yeah, I like that.
When we did one of your activities where we drew the pig.
Oh,
right. And I like that way as just another way of grouping kids, instead of always, you know, we've done the grouping where you draw a card. And so all of the students that have the same, if it's a heart, a diamond, club. So yesterday we did the pig, and it was just interesting too. And they would giggle, and I love listening to the giggle when they'd say, that's a pig, you know. And so then, and I love, because the first thing, you know, when you then start about your similarities, they go directly to the physical characteristics. And so I love that component where you said it has to be something other than. So then listening to, and they really have a hard time, you know, because our kids are not having conversation much anymore. So you're listening to that dead space. They didn't even know what kinds of questions to ask each other to know similarities. So it's like, okay, do you need to dial a friend from another group? You know, what are they talking about? So it was just so fun to hear them giggling and laughing. So yeah, that was just an added component. And we do conundrums. Have you done the conundrums from Dojo, the big ideas too, where you give them a scenario and then you have different components of like, I'm the best pizza place. So then you talk about what do you determine best. And so then you have to come up with an advertisement of why your pizza place is the best. And so it's just interesting. And that's another way that you have to come up with a compromise, because the whole group has to have to be the same consensus, but you give them criteria. So otherwise it would take a longer period of time. So it's just a way of them judging, if I have those components, which one of those, deems the best pizza place. But there's all different kinds of topics. So if you go to Dojo, there is a lot of great conundrums, and it's great to hear their conversation and how they, have that conversation. And then you get some opinionated ones, and it's just interesting. How are you going to solve that? Because you can only pick one as your group. And then it's fun to hear how they're going to advertise for their choice and their little jingle or what. So it just kind of
I
goes in.
haven't done that one. We have an activity on the app called Order a Pizza, and it's really talking about compromise and like, what can you live with versus what can you absolutely not stomach. And collectively, like, ordering a pizza is a problem-solving initiative. And how you might order a pizza with like your birth family versus your chosen family, your friends versus your classmates, how you advocate for your toppings might be different than how you would in a different group. Yeah, and that's a great sort of thought problem, talking about all those different topics. I love it.
Really good.
I had never heard of conundrums. I'm looking them up on Class Dojo.
Yeah. That's fun. And we'll do like hot takes or forced choice, where like you do something that is controversial but also low risk, and make them forced choices. And it's easy, it's entertaining to talk about, why they chose the thing. Oh, the thing that's what I was going to say, is when you talked about them giggling, laughter is a sign of regulation. So if you can get them laughing, in a respectful and controlled manner, that's how you can know that your students are regulated. So awesome. I love laughter.
Awesome.
And you also can talk about how sometimes children might laugh just as an awkwardness because they are uncomfortable. So that was kind of a segue into, just because they're laughing doesn't mean they are saying it's okay what you're doing. Sometimes it's just their way of, I feel uncomfortable and I don't know what to do about it. So then that just gives another, conversation of how do we know it's okay, or if we need to stop, respecting people's space. But so it's all that, we're getting so away from social appropriateness and etiquette because we don't have a lot of socializing anymore. So another thing that you get to include in your day.
I know. I talk with my biological children a lot about you can be funny, but not at the expense of somebody else, and timing. So timing is the thing that we are working on right now. Is it an appropriate and respectful time to be funny? Because yeah, again, not at the expense of somebody else. Like not at the my 5th grader is having his puberty talk today in Phi Ed. And so I was like, look, if you are uncomfortable, you don't get to be funny at somebody else's expense or to be disrespectful. Okay. If you are uncomfortable, you get quiet. Like, you wait, you can talk to me about anything. But yeah, it's interesting how the same thing that can be a sign of regulation is also the sign of dysregulation in some cases.
We in our building we have the bullseye of excellence to determine when you make choices. So a lot of times, you know, even though there's laughter and you want to allow time for that, just say, you know, just ask yourself, is this pulling me towards our bullseye of excellence, or is it in this time, you know, pulling us away? So they're like, darn it, but it was worth, you know, it was so worth it, wasn't it? You're like, yes, however. So
Yeah. Well, friends, that is all I had informally planned for us today. I have plans this evening, so I need to bounce. But I believe that Kendra and Haley are around if you had any other questions. And you guys are certainly welcome to hang out and talk to each other. And I love seeing your faces every week. And so thank you for joining me this afternoon or this morning, in whichever time zone you may be.
well, thanks for joining us on your birthday, Bryn.
Yeah.
Oh, happy
Happy
Bryn.
birthday.
Thank you. Well, I bet it's not even my birthday at your house anymore. So
You get to celebrate tomorrow if you're with Steve. You get to celebrate tomorrow.
no,
too.
I would have celebrated yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah.
double birthday.
Double.
Birthday.
All week. Just do it all week.
That would be great. All right, you guys, I'm gonna head out, but I will see you next week,
Okay, bye-bye.
Awesome. Happy
Okay.
birthday, Bryn.
friends.
Happy birthday. Hi, guys.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah. Any questions, any needs for activities or yeah,
Mason and I went to school together.
Yep.
you
In-
did.